Welcome back to another video, and today I will be doing my end of the year eyeshadow palette declutter for 2024. Welcome back, and today we'll be doing the second part of my end of the year declutter series. So I uploaded already before this one my sort of cheek and lip product declutter video, so those are like all in one video and that should be up on my channel. So with the eyeshadow palettes, today we're going to be doing what I have usually done, is that we are doing this per brand, and I have also made some individual piles of eyeshadows that I have from individual brands, but otherwise these should be organized through by each brand, and I do think that it is good that I am able to do this one because due to Black Friday especially, there are like a few eyeshadow palettes that are, for example, not included in this one. So if I haven't still gotten to test out some of the eyeshadow palettes that I bought for Black Friday, and then some that I will be receiving probably in like over a week's time for Christmas, those obviously won't be included in this one. But because I do know that, for example, for Christmas I most likely will get a palette or a few as presents, it's actually good that there's going to be more space in my collection. But let's now get to the palettes, and maybe we will actually start with the individual high-end luxury ones that you're actually seeing in front of you. Okay, so first one is this one. So this is the Too Faced palette, and this is actually one of their holiday palettes from this year. This is probably something that will get eventually decluttered. However, this hasn't yet been included in a collective eyeshadow palette review, so I will be filming the review video, and then probably after that one this is gonna get decluttered, because unfortunately I can already like spoil you. These two shimmer shades, this one and this one, is nice, but unfortunately the rest of the shades and especially the mattes have been very underwhelming. I luckily did get this on a discount, but still I have so many other sort of shimmer palettes that I like much more, but this gets to stay purely because I still have to film with this one. So next one, so this is the Natasha Denona, Danessa Myricks, and this is the Groundworks Blooming Romance. So this is a sort of face and eye palette. I actually do like these putty shades more maybe as cheek products. I did think I mentioned in a review video that unfortunately this is a bit of a one-toned palette in terms of the fact that only way you can get depth is by this shade and the two darkest shades in the lower corner. Otherwise all the other mid-tone shades kind of mix in together. But I do like for this maybe more for the cheek products than eyes, but this still gets to stay because there are purposes that I like to use this for. Then something that I got when I was on my trip to Ireland this year. So this is the Love Story Wedding Palette by Sculpted by Aimee, and this is a bit of a more difficult one to get to open, so moment. So I like this more for the face product rather than the eyeshadows. I think I did discuss, I think I didn't include this in the eyeshadow palette. This has been in sort of my collected makeup product review videos that I do from all the other products except for eyeshadow. The matte shades are okay. The shimmer shades, one of them, especially this middle one over here, is quite crumbly, and the shimmer shades aren't like anything to write home about, even as satin shades. The cheek shades in this one are very good, and I do still want to keep this around. This was very convenient, for example, when I was traveling in the beginning of December, so this is also staying. And then something that is definitely not getting thrown out, so this is the Byredo Remembrance palette. This is one of the, especially if you like your effortless neutral looks, this is a very excellent palette. Unfortunately, this was a limited edition palette, but I'd say this is still one of my sort of favorite luxury palettes, even though this was like very expensive, but still very beautiful formula. The shimmers are maybe more on the satin side, but still very beautiful, and I kind of like that there's some warm mixed in with cool tones with this one. The packaging is also super reflective. Then some smaller palettes. So this is the Chanel Quint from last Christmas. So this was the Lumiere Graphique. There's a very specific look I like to do with this one. It is I think I said in my, I included this in my Christmas palette sort of video on my channel, and I said that especially for those of you who like cool tone looks without grays, this is actually a pretty good palette for that. Unfortunately, again, this was a limited edition one, but if you manage to grab this, I would highly recommend using it, especially for your more cool toned winter glam looks. So another product that is now currently in my rotation, so this is the YSL Holiday Quad from this year, and this is how it's looking. This is going to be included in my next eyeshadow palette review video alongside with a couple of other palettes, but so far I have been liking this, even though you can't really do that much with this one because it's a quad, but it's still, I do have liked the quality of it so far, and I do actually like this packaging. It's very, very beautiful. Okay, so this is the Charlotte Tilbury Squad, and this is the Pillow Talk. Could we please focus? Pillow Talk Dreams. So this is the more amped up version of the original Pillow Talk palette. This shade is unfortunately loose from the pan, that's why I have to be a bit careful with this one, and that's also the reason why, for example, I can't travel with this one, which for quad is a bit unfortunate. I am now thinking, because I also have the NARS palette that I got during this fall. I really don't need both of these. I would like to keep one Charlotte Tilbury quad, but honestly, like comparing even the formulas, this even like offers a bit more. The formulas of these two is actually pretty similar, but just considering the versatility and everything, I basically have everything that this can do within this palette, so I do think it's time to let go of the Charlotte Tilbury quad, and I will be keeping the NARS instead, because I most likely will reach for this one. So we have our first declutter. Then something that I actually do like, I know this is a bit of a palette that got quite mixed feelings, so this is the Tarte Big Ego palette, and this is how it's looking. So I do think some of these shades aren't maybe the best. Some of these shimmer shades are a bit strange, that they are a bit stiff to work with, but I do actually like how, again, this has more like, you can do a cool tone look with this one, you can do a more warm tone look and a pink look, and you have some blues also in this one. So I actually do like using this one. The matte formula Tarte has is a bit thinner one, so if you have been used to the super pigmented mattes, then this maybe isn't for you, but I actually do like working with this one, so this gets to also stay. Then maybe some more high-end. Let's go through these ones. So I actually have I can pop in again, I did show the box of makeup that I still have gathered on my desk that hasn't been tried out. I can show it again at the end of this video if you didn't watch the previous declutter, but I actually do have one Huda Beauty palette. They're waiting to be tried out, but these are the ones that I have had in my collection for a longer time. So this is the Naughty Nude. This is, again, I do like this one, especially for those more like romantic sultry looks, and I do actually like the sort of combination of burgundies, pinks and golds, and this still gets to stay in my collection. Similarly, the Rose Quartz, this is my absolute favorite Huda palette so far that I've tried from the brand. Beautiful, more cool toned mauve pink leaning, and I do think that the shimmers, especially in this one, are very... this doesn't have multi-chrome shimmers per se, but they are sort of very dimensional shimmers, and I think this is also, in terms of formula, one of the best palettes. And thinking about the like diversity of the formulas, this is one of the best palettes Huda has ever done. Is there... Oh wait, I'll have to check. Sorry, I was thinking that because this has one of the putty shades over here that they did have mold, but it's still fine, surprisingly. So I was kind of... these two are getting a bit old, so I'm still surprised that the sort of gel shade that these have is still like... It doesn't look like it's growing anything weird, so that's a good thing. Let's go through then these ones. So Dior. I actually think one of these might go. So this is their mainline holiday quint from this year. Fortunately, this did have one dot shade. It's this one, this sort of like pinkish orangey shade over here. This really doesn't do anything, but I do kind of like the look that I created with this one. Can you live without this particular palette? Yes, especially considering how expensive these are, but I do like the look that I get with this one, so this gets to stay. And then the Backstage palettes, and I have already gathered 4. So this is their Backstage palette from this year, so I think this was the Celestial Purple was the name of this one. I actually, even though I wasn't a fan of this one having a lot of topper shades, I actually do like the diversity this one has, so this definitely gets to stay. And this is what got me into Dior Backstage palettes, and I do know this has been a favorite for many, so this was the Silver Essentials palette from last holiday. Beautiful palette. I do still think this has one of the best formulas Dior has put into these Backstage palettes, and I really wish they would stick with this formula, but this is definitely staying. I think this one might be something that I am willing to let go. So this was from This was launched beginning of this year, I believe. Okay, my camera is not working. Smoky Essentials, and I think this is definitely more muted than the few other color stories. The formula of this one isn't as good as for example, the Silver Essentials palette had. It is still very nice to work with and everything, but I'm just not gravitating towards this one. I felt that, for example, the looks with this one, they were maybe a bit, because this is a bit mid-tone heavy palette, so I just felt that compared to maybe the other Backstage palettes, this didn't offer that much to me, so actually I am letting this one go because I'm not gravitating towards this one. And then the summer palette from this year, so which one was this one? So this is the Warm Essentials. This had the same good formula that the Backstage palette, the Silver Essentials palette had last Christmas, and this is definitely staying. Is this very like anything super unique in my collection? No, but I actually do like working with this one because it's very effortless, and especially if I want a easy warm tone look, this will do it. So that one gets to stay. Then let's go through my two Unearthly palettes. So this is the Dreamer palette. They launched this at the end of last year. Beautiful cool tone palette. This is getting to stay. I do like the fact that Unearthly really did revamp their formulas. I tried a couple of their older palettes. I was quite disappointed with this one, but with this one the formula has been improved. But I think even more improved was actually Hyacinth palette from this summer. This had like, how should I say, the sort of shimmer formula in this one, it was very opaque. The shimmers sort of had a very nice twist to them, and also the matte quality, especially for this one, I felt it was even better than the Dreamer palette. So these are both getting to stay. I hope Unearthly will keep the good work that they have done with these smaller ones. And then GlossGods. So this is a Swedish indie brand and one of sort of my go-to indie brands, but I do think it's time to maybe let go of some of these. So this is Look for Rainbows. This is an all shimmer palette. These are some nice shimmers, but unfortunately I don't think these shimmers offer anything that's special compared to maybe already some other indie palettes that I have in my collection. So I feel, and a lot of these are like, some of these are duochromes and multichromes, but they're also just, a few of these are like normal shimmers. So I think I'm gonna be letting this one go because I'm just not using this one because I don't feel this anymore sort of fulfills the purpose that it once had in my collection. And then the original Girl on the Moon and Girl on the Mars palette. So they have redone these and reformulated these because I'm just gonna show the Girl on the Moon, for example. So basically, for example, this had the issue that the smooth multichrome shades, which is this one, the blue one and a purple one, those basically they faded completely during the daytime. I wasn't able to have them stay put no matter what kind of primer I was using. They just creased away like completely. Otherwise, the shades are very fine, and this had very like sort of nice multichromes that, for example, the time when I got this I didn't have in any other palettes. However, now that time has went by, some of these multichromes, especially these more chunky ones, are the kind of old school indie formula where they are even a bit sticky. They're a bit like hard to work with, and you really have to work them to get them smoothed out. So I think it's time to maybe let go from both of these. I do kind of like the Girl on the Moon more because it has the sort of pink and golden tones, but this similarly has the two. This I think only had two of the like multichromes that faded away, so this one and this one, but this also has this sort of like old school chunkier multichrome shades that are a bit sticky to work with and they aren't as nice to work with as maybe some of the new indie shimmers. So yeah, I think it's time to let these two go because as I said, these are the original versions of, I think I got these in the, I didn't manage to get this in the original launch because I didn't know about the brand, but I do remember then when the brand launched these had a second restock of these, then a couple of the influencers I followed reviewed these, and because I was so excited that I could get a good indie brand within Europe, I of course made the order, but I think time has now passed from these two. So, Lavender Sky, this is not going anywhere. I have to be careful, this is a bit messy, as you can see, because unfortunately this and the other palette that I will show afterwards, these came broken, but I was able to repress them. These I like because with these palettes they started including mattes in their sort of palettes also aside from shimmers, but this still gets to stay. I do actually like this sort of lavender haze color story. And then the color of Rain, this already has a bit more like better multi-chrome formula than the original sort of Girl on the Moon and Mars. These are like, they are on a chunkier side, but they're still not any more like sticky, and they actually are easy to smooth out. I really wish that instead of the random matte black we would have gotten all shimmers in this one, but this also gets to stay despite that it looks a bit rough, but as I said, these got broken in transport. But the brand did refund me for both of these palettes, so I'm not that upset about it. I'm still able to use them. Let's get nude. I have gathered a lot of neutral palettes during this year, and that's just been the sort of trend that has been that neutral palettes have been very in. This was a very one-toned palette. A lot of the shimmer shades end up looking kind of similar once you get them on the lid, and I actually did get the Molten Metals palette in their Black Friday sale, and even though that has less shades than this one, but because the shades have different kind of undertones, so it has been more cool-toned and warm-toned shades, and I actually do feel that just based on swatches, I still don't think I haven't posted the swatch video on my channel, but it's gonna come. Because I felt that with this one, the shimmers also kind of felt drier compared to maybe some of their other palettes, so... And then with the Molten Metals, the shimmers actually feel much better, and I feel that those have more impact to them. So I think I'm gonna be letting this one go, because I do feel that I'm just not like gravitating towards this one, because I felt that the looks that I made with this one became really similar, and I don't think this was one of the like, so far I don't think this was a good, like one of the better releases from the brand, because I felt that they have come out with neutral palettes previously, and I felt they had something interesting, but this kind of sort of lacked for me the interesting part, because everything kind of ended up looking the same no matter what kind of shades I used with this one, so this also is getting to let go. Okay, something that's not letting go, they actually bought this one back this year, so this is the Vintage Glam, and this is what I mean when I said that they have done interesting neutral palette. So this is basically a neutral palette that has a mix of purples and pinks with it. I absolutely adore this palette, and I'm pretty happy that they brought this back this year, because I do know a lot of people have been asking them for this one, so this is definitely staying. Then next, another European indie brand, so from GlamShop, and with GlamShop there is again one palette waiting in my sort of box of stuff to be reviewed, because I did actually shop their Black Friday sale, and they're actually teasing a new collection like just before Christmas, so that is also something that is kind of I think they might reveal the collection next week. I don't know, is it something that if I order it, will I be able to get it from Poland to shipped here just in time before Christmas, but I am kind of interested to see what is I think the collection is called Creme de la Creme, so we shall see, but I do have the C'est Violetem collection that they launched during the fall time, which I think is one of their, like, so far, just looking at the stuff and having swatched the palette, it feels like it's gonna be their best collection yet, but this is like the old stuff that I have actually tried out. So this is something that I made myself, so this is, oh god, that's broken. I think it's time to let this one, like, palette altogether go. So these are their individual multichromes, but this is one of those, like, again, older indie multichrome formula where these are quite chunky. One of the shades has gone, like, popped out completely. And these are just not something that I like to work with compared to maybe some of the, like, newer indie shimmers that I have. So it's time to let this one go because it's messy, and there are, like, I have better multichromes in my collection, so this is getting decluttered. Then this one, so this is the Percusa. This was their sort of spring palette a few years ago. I'm still gonna keep this one in my collection. I actually do like this color story. There are a few chunkier shimmers in this one, but they are sort of already maybe a bit improved than what they had previously, so this is getting to stay. Also think the packaging is very beautiful. And then these two are not going anywhere. I have always said that I usually don't having all matte palettes, but this one, this has like sort of neutral brown matte tones that have very interesting undertones that I don't actually have in any other palette, so that is why this is definitely staying. Also the matte formula in this one, I think it's a bit better than in some of their other palettes, so that gets to stay. And then the matching shimmer palette. Unfortunately, for some reason they do keep this one in stock, but the shimmer palette was a limited edition one. And again, this has maybe a bit more interesting shimmer formulas. What is in that middle shade? Oh no, sorry, it looked a bit funny on the camera, but I just remembered I had to repress this one. So again, these shimmers are a bit more interesting neutral shimmers than what I have in other palettes, and this complements the matte palette perfectly, so this also is staying. Then let's maybe go through the Cosmic Brushes palettes that I have. So I haven't been buying from Cosmic Brushes for now almost for a full year. And the reason is that the color stories they have been launching, they just haven't like created the sort of pool that their palettes used to do. Also, my makeup preferences this year have been leaning more towards neutral palettes, but they did release actually two neutral palettes this year, but for some reason I just thought that, because as I said, I have been also buying quite a few neutral palettes, I was just thinking that, yeah, but I also kind of have something like that one. So mine collection is kind of maybe has a bit older palettes. So this is the Delicious Delights. This is still one of my favorite rainbow palettes. I have always said that in terms of colorful mattes, especially Cosmic Brushes does them really well, and this is a beautiful colorful palette, and this is staying. So this is the Serenity palette. This is what sort of made them very popular. These aren't my sort of primary shade that I gravitate towards. However, I do like having this around, and there are like some looks that I do like doing with this one, but because it's a blue and green heavy, it's not something that is like sort of my top palette, but I still do like this one, so this gets to stay. Then there are sort of original palettes, so this is the Royal Rose palette, and again this is a sort of colorful palette with neutrals. Especially during summertime I like working with this one, and this is also staying. And then still my favorite palette from them, so this is the Muse palette, and this used to be their like most neutral palette before the neutral palettes they launched this year. Still very beautiful. I would still recommend picking this one up if you're planning it. I do think it's beautiful. It's like has neutrals mixed with some muted colorful shades, and always the looks that I create with this one are very beautiful, so none of those are going away. Then my sort of Ensley Reign palette. So I have the Harvest Moon. This was my first palette from the brand. Very beautiful, more fake grungy palette. I did actually have this in my rotation recently. The mattes I have complained with this one are a bit maybe too one-toned. But the shimmers in this one were very beautiful, and the shimmer variety of this one is very beautiful. You have some deep mid-tone and light shimmers, and beautiful palette, and definitely was quite happy to spend my money on this one. And then the sort of like ultimate favorite palette. So this is the Cold Moon palette. I got this during this year, and yeah, this is still beautiful. I just like the way it has cool tones, but there's some warmth in this one. You have some pinks, there is some more gray leaning, there's some blue leaning, there's some even bit green leaning neutrals. This is just beautiful. We shall see when I will be doing my end of the year palette ranking that has this held up as my sort of favorite palette from this year. But this I think is the best thing Ensley Reign has done, at least in my opinion. So then some indie palettes that I have two palettes from. So Glamlite, this is the Chucky Crazy in Love palette. This is the first Glamlite palette I tried. Very good formula. I do know Glamlite, they do have a few formulas they use. This one had the better one. It is a grungy, deeper toned palette, but I do like using this occasionally when I want a more sort of a grungy look. Then the palette that I think has the like best Glamlite formula so far. So this is the Betty Boop palette, and this had especially the shimmers. Like I think there's like one true duochrome shimmer in this one, but the way these shimmers sparkled and also the way these mattes sort of worked out, I would still recommend picking this up if you have been planning to get this one. And it looks kind of maybe more red than it actually is, but you can get quite neutral looks also out of this one. And yeah, very good quality, and I really wish Glamlite would stick with this one instead of experimenting with their formula. So then the two Glamlite palettes. So this is the Warriors Wear Pink palette. This was a collaboration palette with Syria Soto, I think. Beautiful palette. This is what made me in love, get the Gourmande girl sort of in my radar, because I do think the mattes especially were so surprisingly like buttery, like very blendable, but still had a lot of punch to them, and the shimmers were very beautiful. And actually compared to this one, because this is the sort of Peach Perfect palette I got from them during this fall, and I actually felt that considering that I had used this palette previously, I felt that the formula in this one was different. The shimmers I think are maybe like a bit more sparkly and improved, but especially the mattes I felt that some of them were quite hard pressed. I still did like the looks, and I do like this palette as a whole, but I do feel that I would have maybe preferred if they would have kept the matte formula that was in this one, because with this one I do feel the mattes definitely needed more work, but the shimmers on the other hand were like very beautiful. There was like one dot shade, it's this one here, but other than that, both of these I still like, and both of these will get to stay. I don't actually have that. As you can see, Glamlite, Gourmande Girls and Glamlite are those brands that I only have a few palettes from, so they get to stay. Let's next go to Kiko. So from Kiko there's 3 palettes, and I think one of these is gonna get decluttered. So this is one of their staple lamp palettes. I believe this is in the... Okay, apparently, I think this is 02 or 04 maybe. They also, again, Kiko doesn't do, these do have shade names, there's a name for this palette, but Kiko doesn't put them in the palettes, but this is the sort of orangey leaning neutral palette. One of the shades, as you can see, it's a bit broken, but I do like to keep in this around for certain kind of looks. This is especially more of a spring and summer palette for me, but this gets to stay. It also doesn't take that much space. So this is from their holiday palette from 2 years ago, and this is going to be getting decluttered. I actually traveled with this one during this summer, and unfortunately the formula of this one, it's no longer as good as it used to be, especially with the shimmer shades. I had the issue which I had not had previously with this one, and it happened so that even though I was using my normal primers, what I usually do for my eyelids, the shimmers just creased away. So that's that's kind of sad, because I actually did like the shimmers in this one. So this is getting decluttered because unfortunately I think the formula isn't what it used to be. But yeah, it's a couple of years old palette, so I'm not that surprised. Then Kiko's holiday palette from last year. So this was from their holiday premiere collection. This gets to stay. I actually did recommend this one in my sort of Christmas recommendation video. Unfortunately, you can't get this one, but I especially felt that they had improved the shimmer formulas for this one. Very sparkly, and considering what I saw reviews of their holiday palette this year, this seems to have like more sparklier shimmers than the holiday palette they launched this year. But I didn't buy anything from the holiday collection this year because I felt that it wasn't as good as the products from previous year. But this is definitely also staying. So MUA, from MUA I have 3 palettes, and all of these are getting to stay. So this is their Desert Bloom, very beautiful palette, convenient for travel, and I did mention in my collective eyeshadow palette review video that if you're someone who does your makeup on the go and wants something that is foolproof and will create an effortless, beautiful look no matter what, this is something that I would recommend. So this is the Stardust palette. I haven't reviewed this one yet. I have a swatch video of this one as a short, but I still haven't reviewed this, so this is still staying. And still my favorite palette from the brand, so this is Blush Nudes. I have always said that if you're planning to buy these big palettes, this is something that I would get, because the shimmers in this one are beautiful, the mattes work beautifully, the packaging is very cheap, but for drugstore this is awesome. So none of those are going away. So, by Beauty Bay palettes, let's see. I don't think I will be decluttering any of these, because each of these, they do have kind of place in my collection. So this is the Rich palette, so this is the 16-pan version. Beautiful burgundy palette. I recommended this as an alternative for the Huda's Naughty Nude palette if you want a sort of burgundy look at a drugstore price. Very beautiful, and I do like having one of these smaller neutral palettes from the brand in my collection. Berries palette, this is my ultimate pink palette. I have always said that you can get the same looks with the 16-pan version, though I think the 16-pan version doesn't have the purples, but still. This is just in my collection because pink is my favorite color, and I think if you're looking for your ultimate pink palette, this is a very good option at a drugstore price. So would recommend this one or the 16-pan version, but this is staying. And then the Earthy palette. This is one of the few like big palettes that I have said from the brand are worth getting in the big version, because the smaller version, it doesn't have this sort of murky earthy colored row on the bottom. This is especially a fall palette for me, and for that reason it is definitely staying, because I do like during the fall time use the tones this has. So we are doing Oden's Eye next, and I do think also in this pile we have some palettes that are gonna be let go. So first one are their holiday palettes from this year. So this is the Rosy Jingle and Silver Bliss. I'm just gonna show how these look. These are still on my rotation to be reviewed, so the holiday palettes from this year, these are not going anywhere, but this is how the first one is looking, and then the Rosy Jingle, this is the more pink one that I think a lot of people are thinking. I will also say this does make me think more spring than Christmas maybe, but this is still staying, as I said, because these are to be reviewed. So, Jewels and Gem palettes, one of my favorite palettes from the brand last year. It's sort of neutral palette with some murky colors. A beautiful formula, one of the better formulas the brand has done. This is staying. And then the holiday palettes from 2 years ago. These are the very coveted ones. So this is the Christmas Eve and Merry Christmas palette. None of these are going away. This is a very beautiful cool toned palette. One of the few palettes where I say that I even like the blue, using the blue tones in this one because how well they mix with the other shades. And then this is the Merry Christmas one. Again, very beautiful, especially if you like your punchy greens and reds. So the original Angelica Newquist and Oden collaboration. This is beautiful. This for spring and summer is something that I like. And I also have always said that I like that this also has a bit of depth to it, but very beautiful color combination. This is staying. So the one of the Trick or Treat palettes, so this is the Little Ghost, and she released 2 of these Halloween palettes during last fall with the brand. I want to keep this around because I do feel I still want to test this out a bit more in terms of color combination. Not perhaps my like absolute favorite, but I can appreciate that this had a bit of warmth, but then you also had some cool shades, but still not maybe my absolute favorite from the brand, but I still want to try this out a bit more, so this gets to stay. And then the original Alva palette, unfortunately, I think it's time to let this one go. I just feel that the formula of this one compared to the other palettes that I have no longer maybe compare, and I really wish that they would maybe kind of redo this kind of neutral color story in the future in some other palette, but because of the how this formula compares to the rest and just how old this palette is getting, this is getting decluttered. So let's next go through my Makeup Revolution palettes. So first one is this one. So this is one of the new Iconic palettes, and I believe this was in the shade True Icon. This is not going anywhere. This is so far the best drugstore palette I've tried this year, and this is definitely staying. This is their holiday palette from this year. This is still to be reviewed in a collective makeup eyeshadow palette review video. This has been in my rotation already, so I do know what I will be doing with this one. This I think is also going to be going to the category of products that once I have done the review video, I will be decluttering this. The formulas in this one are actually very on par with the other palette I just showed. It's just that the combination of the colors, this basically has like 3 very light matte shades, then you have these 2 very deep shades, and then you have those 2 cream shades on the side, and actually the 3 cream shades on the side are a bit worse than the ones in the other palette, so for that reason I'm gonna probably declutter this, but that is after I filmed the review video. Then my Blend Bunny palettes, none of these are getting decluttered, but I will show them anyway. So this is the Longin palette from this year. I didn't love this as much that I initially thought, because this went actually a lot deeper, even though it looks that it kind of has mid-tone and lighter shades. But I still do like this palette, and it is still, like, I think pretty unique in my collection, so it is staying. The quality of this one, it was still like the same good Blend Bunny quality. Then the Dollhouse palette, my god, why are these so messy? So this is obviously not going anywhere. This is, I think still one of my favorite Blend Bunny palettes that the brand has ever launched, and this is definitely staying. And then the Sickly Sweet, this was their pastel palette. I do think that this is still one of the best pastel palettes to get, and I do appreciate that there are deeper tones in this one, so you can actually use this as a standalone palette. The shimmers I wasn't such a big fan of, but this again gets to stay because I do like the formulas overall and the color story. So ABH, and from these ones I think it's time to let the sultry go. So mine isn't as old as some people's are, because I got this when this was relaunched in one of the Christmas sets during the worst of COVID time, when brands really didn't have the capacity to do new releases, so they did a lot of relaunches. But mine has been very, very well loved and used. I do still think to this day this was a very good, more cool toned, neutral leaning palette, and the formulas of this for the time were very good, but now it's time to let this one go because this is just getting old at this point. This is the Mini Spice palette from this year. This is definitely staying. I did give this quite a good review on my collective eyeshadow palette review video. One of my, I think this is going to be one of my sort of favorites amongst the high-end palettes that I have tried during this year. And then the Fall Romance. They didn't bring a big palette during this year, instead they brought the 2 9-pans, but I still like to keep this around, even though the formula of this one is not as good, for example, as in the Mini Spice palette, but I do actually like using this one and the kind of looks I'm able to get. Next, Natasha Denona's. Okay, so this is the pastel palette. I'm still gonna keep, like, there is a very specific time of the year when I dig this one out, and I use this in conjunction with the Circa de Loco palette that you will be seeing soon, so I'm still keeping this around. I know this isn't the best reviewed palette from the brand, and I can obviously see, like, I can honestly say I have better pastel shades amongst my palettes compared to this one, and considering how much this cost, but I want to keep this around because there are certain times of the years that I do like using this one. Then the I Need a Warm palette. This launched this year. This goes to the category of the many neutral palettes I bought during this year. I actually like this bit more than the I Need a Nude palette that you will be seeing more. And in terms of skin undertone, because I have a cool rosy undertone, the I Need a Nude is actually something that should fit me a bit better. But with this one I felt that at least, for example, with the mattes, there was maybe a bit more to choose from. But this is definitely staying. And then the I Need a Nude, I also got this during this year. My parents brought it for me when they were traveling. Very beautiful. Nice cool tone palette. With this one I did feel that maybe with the mattes there wasn't that much options to go to, but this is a beautiful, and especially like the shimmers in this one. So this is my dream palette, but you can probably see this is looking very different. So I basically combined my favorite shades from the from the Dream palette and then the Retro Glam palette. I do think that since I do now have the newer sort of neutral palettes with a new Natasha Denona formula in my collection, I feel that I don't need this one anymore. So I think this sort of mixed up palette is getting decluttered now, because I do feel that I have now her shades now in a better formula. So this is getting go. And oh dear, this is always so difficult. So the Retro palette. In terms of color story, this is still my absolute favorite Natasha Denona palette. Unfortunately, this again has the older formula, and especially with this one, the age of the formula is beginning to show. I have loved this very much. For example, with the shimmers, I am beginning to see that there's quite a lot of hard pan in them because I've been using this so much. Gosh. I really wish next year, because if she was so good at bringing neutral palettes this year, could we maybe please then get like a new warm pink linen palette? I do know that we got the Roxa palette, however that is more like punchier purples and pinks. I would much rather have this sort of mauvish muted pink tone, so this is a difficult one. I haven't been really using this during this year, so that also thinks. I think it's time to retire the Retro palette, even though I will say this is an absolutely beautiful palette, even though this doesn't have the latest formula. But I hope now during next year Natasha Denona is gonna like redo this in the new formula and maybe revamp the color story a little bit. But I have loved this very much. This has been very dear to me, but it's time to let this one go because the shadows are starting to show their age. Wow, never thought that I would be doing that. So this is staying, so this is the Circa Loco palette, and this is something that I use with the pastel palette. With this one and the pastel, I feel that the shimmer formulas in both of these, those haven't been so prone to hard panning, unlike, for example, with the Retro palette. So with these one, the shimmers are still good to go and the mattes are still working fine. So yeah, that's a cutthroat. I wasn't really expecting to be decluttering two Natasha Denona palettes. Wow. There's one pile here that I haven't yet done. Okay, yeah, I'm running out of space. So, some individual indie palettes that I only have one of. So, this is the Bougie Boudoir from... Was this from Kaima? Yes. So, I tried the Skulls and Roses palette from the brand, but I felt that that had a lot of these sort of sticky multi-chrome formulas that were hard to work with. With this one, I felt that they did improve the shimmer formulas. I actually liked working this a lot. The mattes are a bit on the dry side. It's definitely not the best indie matte formula I've tried, but I do like this one. However, I will say that if you have the Cold Moon palette from Ensley Reign, you do get kind of similar looks with these two palettes, but I like having this one around and I do like supporting new indie brands. So this, if you've been eyeing this, I would recommend this one. So this is from Lethal. This is sort of a not pre-made. This is something I made with their palette maker. I do want to keep this around, so they have this sort of palette maker tool on their website that you can create your own palettes with. So yeah, this is staying because this is actually the only Lethal palette I own. And then the Glaminatrix Rich Romance palette. So we all know I have been mixed feelings. Mixed feelings for this one. I absolutely adore the color story and the multichromes and the shimmers, but I also had the issue that the shimmers are for some reason very prone to creasing compared to some other indie shimmers that I use. But I just love the color story of this one so much, and this is still getting to stay in my collection, even though this isn't exactly a perfect indie palette for me. So let's now go to we still have a few palettes to go. Adept. Some of these are getting thrown out. So this is the Plain Jane Remastered palette. This is actually the only Adept palette that I ordered from all the way from States. That was before we had Monolith Shop that now stocks Adept, so it's now easier to order them. This has beautiful shimmers, but this is getting old, so that's the reason why this is getting decluttered. But if you like your sort of pink and colorful shimmers, this is still something that I would recommend. Okay, this is a difficult one. So Minka, this unfortunately has these very chunky, almost sticky shimmers that you really, if you have sensitive eyes or your sensitive eyelids or eyes in any manner, I would never recommend this one. If you get any of these shimmers are truly something that they are very easy to get sort of like also everywhere else than your eyelid. Glitter glue can help working with this one, but also something with the shimmers, a lot of these shimmers look quite similar in the eye. So I do like the effect the shimmers give, but because you need to do quite a lot of finicking to get the shimmers look nice, if you have textured lids, I would stay away from this one because these shimmers will create more texture. So I think it's time to let this one go. I do like the idea of this one, and I have liked the individual shimmers, but just because overall, because of how the formula of this one is, I'm still not reaching for this in too often, so the Minka is getting thrown out. And then the two Adept palettes that are not going anywhere. So this is the original Star Trek collaboration, the Samarian Sunset, very beautiful. Still one of the best color stories I think the brand has done. The mattes, unfortunately, in this one, those weren't as good, but the shimmers alone are worth to keep this. Then their palette from this year, so this was the, what was this called? Unity. This doesn't per se have multichrome. There's one multichrome, which is the sort of yellow shade you're seeing on the camera. A few of the shimmers are duochromes. The mattes in this one were like improved from the Samarian Sunset. Still not perfect mattes, but they were like better. I liked this surprisingly a lot, even though I knew when buying this that the shimmers, they weren't like the special shimmers that Adept has on some of their palettes, but I want to keep this around because I did like the shimmers. And these shimmers are the more smoother formula, they don't really cause creasing and they sparkle very beautifully on your eyes. So if you've been eyeing this one, I would recommend getting it. Pat McGrath, and we are actually going to be getting rid of some of these. So both of the holiday palettes, this is from I think a year ago, this is from 2 years ago. This one, similarly, as I have said with a few other palettes, this one traveling with me, this holiday quint from a couple of years ago is actually still one of my favorite like holiday quints they have done. But again, this one has shown its age, unfortunately, so I had the issue that I have had with a couple of other palettes that the formula has gone old with. Even I use the same eyeshadow priming products that I have been using with my other shadows. The shimmers don't stick to your lids, they disappear during the daytime or they crease very terribly. And that's an issue that I don't have with shadows that I know are still like good to use. So unfortunately, this will be getting decluttered because the formula of it has gone bad. Then the holiday quint from last year, I think this was one of the Bijou Brilliance eyeshadows. The only matte shade in this one, I gave it critique quite a lot because for me at least, the purple didn't work out. It was very hard to work with. I'm not reaching for this one, and I think it's maybe the combination that the two blue shimmers are quite unique, but actually two of the silver shades that you're seeing, they kind of look similar on the eyes. And yeah, overall, I'm just, I have blue shimmers in other palettes that I use much more. This is staying in my collection unused, so that's also why this is getting decluttered. Motherships, we are not getting rid of these. Are we gonna do the thing where I'm gonna open these? Where's the end of the, yeah. I think I should have maybe opened this before. So this is the Divine Rose 2, I think, because it's in the special, very blinding packaging. still my ultimate pink and golden palette. Also the reason why I haven't been buying any motherships in recent years, because they've been just the iteration of this particular palette. But this still had the special shades that she no longer seems to also do, so this is staying. Which one was this one? I actually have to know. Okay, I was completely dumb. It actually says this in the front, so this is the Utopian Dream palette. This is definitely a spring palette. For me, I'm just going to get this open, mainly because of the Astral Blitz shades. These are very sort of more like brighter, lighter shimmers compared to the shimmers in the other two motherships that I own. This is still also staying in my collection, even though again this is maybe a palette that I use only a few times a year, but I do still like this one. And then a palette that has gotten use in my collection. I did discuss that there's a reason this was in my holiday recommendation video recently, because again I actually did use this for Christmas parties again. So this is the Divine Rose one. Beautiful, more neutral-leaning mothership, and especially if you like your more neutral-leaning looks that you want a pop of glam, this is a perfect palette, and this is one of the motherships I say that is very worth their price, and I can see a lot of people getting use out of this one. But yeah, motherships are staying, but the small holiday palettes are being let go. So, my pile of random individual palettes. So this is one of the Gourmande palette. This is the only K-beauty palette I own. I think this Pampas Garden was this name. I'm gonna keep this around. I was positively surprised about this one, especially the matte formula. I'm not a fan of these sort of chunky Korean shimmers that they do in this one, but they are very beautiful. I just have to be careful when I remove them. But this gets to stay because I do like having a 1K beauty palette also in my collection. This is the W7 Influence palette. So here is how it looks. This is one of the better W7 formulas that they have done. So I think I am keeping this around. I do like this sort of neutral palette with a twist of bit of gold and oranges that this has. I believe this is duping the Huda Beauty's Empowered palette. So this is the Moira eyeshadow palette I tried this year. This was the Moment With You palette. Like the formula, matte formula for the price. These go around 20 euros in our country. Beautiful shimmer formulas. I like the variety of shimmer formulas, even though I wasn't such a fan that this has basically like a couple of similar looking topper shades, but still the quality of this is very beautiful, and if you have been trying out Moira, I would recommend their eyeshadows. Then BPerfect Mrs. Glam palette. This is huge, and this actually has also some face shades. I'm gonna be decluttering this one purely because of the fact that despite how many eyeshadow shades this has, I had a lot of looks looking very similar with this one. I do think it was nice to try out and see what the kind of formula BPerfect has these days, because it had been a while since I tried the brand. But unfortunately for me, this is a very big palette to store, and despite having many shades, I still ended up having kind of similar shades, and also the shimmer shades kind of were looking pretty similar once you got them to your eyes. So because of the lack of diversity and because how clunky this is getting also thrown out. So the last of the palettes, and this is my P. Louise pile, and this looks kind of big because few of the palettes are big. So this is one of the Stack 'em Up palettes. I actually did like the formula of this one, but I think with the sort of bright orangey, punchy yellow shades, I am more likely to use the Unearthly High Temp palette. So in terms of quality-wise, there's nothing wrong with this one, but I just think that because I have the High Temp palette from Unearthly, I'm most likely going to be using that one. So that's the reason this is probably, because I know this is going to get buried in my collection as an alone palette, so that's why this is getting thrown out. So this is one of one of their Christmas palettes. I said from this one and the book palette I will be showing soon that they truly did something with the eyeshadow formula here. The shimmers in this one are much sparklier than the P. Louise shimmers I've tried before, and I actually did like the format of this palette, so this is getting to stay. This is the Fall in Love palette, and I think I'm going to be decluttering this one because I kind of have the neutral shades in a better formula in this one, and I also kind of have the pink shades in the Big Book palette in a newer formula that you're soon going to see. So because this has a bit of an older formula, that it's a nice formula, but it's not maybe as good as some of the other palettes I have from the brand. That is why this is getting to also be let go. And this is then this big one, so this is the Sweet Escape one, and this actually has other products also than just the How are we gonna show this? Maybe this way. Okay, now you're using the lamp. How do that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so sorry, we are having some technical issues. So this is sort of like a pink palette with a twist, so pink and neutral shades. I actually like the quality of this one a lot, and this is also one of those palettes that has the cheek shades. Then you're having the cream shades, and then you're having sort of highlighters. So this is getting to stay because I do kind of have everything from the brand in this one, even though it's a very clunky palette to store. Then this is the If Looks Good Chill palette, and this was in the end of the year budget box last year, so this is a all blue palette. I actually like the quality of this one a lot, and I was positively surprised because blue shades are hard to formulate. So even though this is clunky to store and very big, I do want to keep this around. I'm gonna also show the other layer here. So this is also getting to stay because I do think the formula of this one was pretty good, and I have all the blues that I need in this one palette. But yeah, I think actually that was the last pile, and we have now gone through my whole collection. So I think I was quite of a, how should I say, I think I decluttered more than I anticipated, and yeah. I will be again popping the picture to the screen of showing all the palettes I got rid of, and now I can actually maybe show the box that I have again. So if you've been wondering why maybe some products that you have been seeing in my channel weren't included, that's because they are in this humongous box. You can see there's eyeshadows and there's all sort of other stuff in that one, but yeah, altogether, I would very much like to hear, have you been decluttering any of your eyeshadow palettes, and if you have, what kind of palettes have you been keeping and what are you throwing away and for what reason? Also, if you have been getting any new eyeshadow palettes into your collection, I would also love to hear about that in the comments. If you like this video, push the like button, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell button if you want to get notifications from my future content. You can also find me with the same nickname, Makeup Hedgehog on Instagram. I hope I'll see you again soon in the video. Bye bye!